Alright, sup fellow space nerds, welcome back to our weekly Star Citizen coverage, which I think I'm going to name the Star Citizen Weekly Briefing from now on. We got a fair bit to go into. We've got a monthly report, an update to the current event that's going on in the live build. We have an updated answer to the question about what to do with the unattended vehicles that are lying around the verse, and the fact that you can't seem to get on them and steal them anymore, even if they are available. We've got the current 4.3 patch notes in Evocati to go over, and we have the Persistent Universe monthly report. We have a fair bit to get into. There's a lot to discuss, so without further ado, let's get into it. Now, first things first, we're going to get these small things out of the way before we get into the current patch notes and then the monthly report. The first thing is about the current resource drive that's going on. Everyone knows that the elevators have been very, very broken for the hauling missions. That has improved somewhat with the hot fixes. I've been able to use those elevators a couple of times, but you're still showing up and finding oodles and oodles of ships just abandoned there with the elevators not working as well. They haven't quite got it fully fixed yet. I haven't tried it in the 4.3 build because I was mainly testing the new facilities that they've put in, but it has improved a little bit. Not where it needs to be. A lot of people are finishing these missions for like the resource collection missions by doing all the other missions, the ones where you defend the ship, you go to the outposts to take back the cargo. It's already there. You don't need to use the freight elevator at an outpost. It's a bit of a workaround, but it's also a bit of a pain in the ass, and it slows down and kind of negates the progress of anyone who wants to focus on just the hauling aspect. But the good news is, because of that, as you can see on the screen here, Nico has, or Niku, however you pronounce that handle, has said that the resource drive has been extended a few more weeks into 4.30, which is not out yet. So we're going to have time to jump in and get it all done, at very least for the corporation that you want to get the rewards and the color schemes for, if not all four of them. I think this is a good thing for them to have done. I think it was pretty much necessary with how broken the elevators have been up to this point. So there you go. For those of you who are despairing of getting this event done at all, now's your chance. You've got much more time to play around with it and at least get one of them done, if not all four. Now, regarding the magical teleportation fields that ships have right now, where when you walk into a ship or board a ship that isn't yours, you get magically teleported out. Now, this is not the case with the mission for the resource drive where you have to retrieve the cargo from a derelict ship. There's nobody on board. If you can get on board, you've seen through the footage that I've displayed in a couple episodes prior, if you can get on board that ship, you can absolutely take it, bring it back to the return point, take out the cargo, complete that part of the mission, but you can't do anything with that ship afterwards. It disappears within a certain time frame. Even if you fix it, spend the money to fix the ship, you can't store it and keep it. If you go to fly to another point, it will disappear on you when you're in the middle of quantum. So somebody was asking about this because of the fact that you find derelict ships all the time, especially near combat missions. And if they're not owned, you should be able to get on board them and take them. And I believe keep them as well if they are a derelict ship. Now, Luke Presley answered this question about whether or not this should be happening, and here I've got it up on the screen for you. He says that we should be able to legally do anything we want with unowned vehicles, and the only thing that should have been stopping us was the shields, which, yeah, okay. He says that this is being tested and is not currently the case. They're going to investigate this. I have discovered this as well on my own. You can't even get into some of those ships like around the pads, again, with these elevators. That's what brought this question up. People, when the elevator doesn't work, they frustratingly quit, but their ship is still sitting there. And it's been sitting there for quite some time. The owner's not even logged into the game. But if you try to board that ship, even if it's wide open, to even just move it off the pad, you will be instantly teleported out. And this is not the way it's supposed to work. So I'm glad to see that they're working on fixing that. That's a big deal because it takes you right out of the immersion of Star Citizen. When you find a derelict ship in space, or when you get rid of one, like do a soft death in combat, you should be able to board that ship and not be teleported off. So when this is happening, it's not a good thing. So it's being looked at. Hopefully that'll be taken care of soon. Now on to the patch notes. Right now the testing and feedback focus is the usual things, but they re-enabled the ladder improvements. They took them out in one of the prior patches, and this Friday's patch, the latest patch, they re-enabled it. They're still doing stability, obviously. New Onyx facilities, mission distribution updates, hangar spawning, dynamic snow, which, by the way, they have said now the dynamic snow creates puddles, light fighter tuning changes, the sniper rifle for the Volt, more Wicklow ships, and more additional hairstyle. A second note is when it comes to Wicklow. Certain ships were locked behind Wicklow, and that's not a problem. I don't have a real issue with certain hard to get, very hard to get, and very, very capable ships being locked behind him. But they went a little bit too far with it. For example, they used the Golem, the Drake Golem, which is a starter ship, and they put it behind Wicklow. Now, I can't remember the exact quote-unquote recipe that you need in order to get the Golem from him, but by the time you got all the stuff for his Golem, you would have had more than enough money to just go and buy an actual prospector, which is a better mining ship in the first place. Like, it didn't make sense for some of these things. Now that I believe the F7 Hornet and a couple other ships now have been added to the shops. So if you have been waiting for ships, I don't have the list in front of me right now, but if you have been waiting for a ship or two to get into the store, like the in-game stores, not the real money store on the website, but the in-game stores, then check them out now, because the one you've been waiting for may be there. I don't know. It depends on what you're waiting for. Now, as you can see here with the notes in front of you for the features and gameplay, obviously they're continuing to update the Onyx facilities, and these, by the way, I'm going to talk about these a little bit before we get into the monthly report, but these new facilities in Stanton, the 120 of them that there are roughly, these things are chef's kiss. They're as close to as we can get to PvE. They're fantastic, they're atmospheric, and they're a hell of a lot of fun, and they've got a story if you're willing to actually slow down and look around a bit and see what you can find in the audio logs. These things are the shit. I love them, absolutely. Now, the Asperia Talon has also gotten some updates with an improved maneuverability setup, improving how it controls overall, and it also has been adjusted so that it has a enhanced ship stealth profile. The cross-section emissions have been adjusted. Now, the Vanduul Blade has received a slight nerf to its capacitor buffs, and that was based on initial feedback and testing data. The Volt rifle was removed from the shops in-game. You can still get it in pools. Now, I never once found this in a shop ever. Admittedly, I did not look super hard to find one, but if you guys did see a Volt, sound off in the comments below. Like, where was it? Was it in all shops or only in specific ones? And of course, they did some more performance optimizations to the core server tech. Now, regarding those new facilities there in Stanton, the ASD facilities, these things are as close to instance dungeons that we get. And I can tell you from my own experience that these areas are not the PvP hellholes that the ASD facilities in Pyro were, because there was only 10 of them, or 4 of them or something like that. Same with Hathor. There was only 10 of them. And they were wide open areas, and everybody showed up there. With these, there's 120 of them. There's multiple missions that take place in different areas and send you to different sections of these facilities. And they've actually seemed to have done a decent amount of work to ensure players are spread out. In my entire time of testing this, admittedly not hundreds of hours or tens of hours during the last week, but in the several hours that I did get to try it, I only ever encountered another player twice. The first time, he shot me on sight and killed me, and I thought, okay, here we go, it's another PvP event. Nope. He realized I wasn't an AI and healed me with his med gun. And we both just explored the whole thing together. The comms weren't working, unfortunately, but we actually took on the rest of the facility with together, fighting against the NPCs, and we both left when we finished our objectives. Fantastic. The second time I ran into somebody, he turned on, saw me, started flashing his flashlight at me. I did the same thing, carried on in peace. Now, yes, you are going to find griefers at some point in time, but the likelihood of you running into other players in these areas is much, much lower than you might expect. This actually feels kind of like what Chris was talking about with the overall vibe of what he wants for Star Citizen, where it will feel mostly like a very PvE experience, but you can absolutely come across another player now and again. That's what it felt like. These things feel great. I cannot wait for this to come into live for everybody, because I know not a lot of people try the PTU builds. They wait for it to come to live. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised by this, so long as CIG can launch them in a working and functional state. Now, moving on to the monthly report for the Persistent Universe for July 2025. The AI content team continued pushing forward with new combat wildline sets for NPCs, taking a look at the shop behaviors to make the population feel more interactive in various landing zones. They continued planning for upcoming releases and working to support the mission and design teams for getting those comm calls working, which is actually kind of cool. I like that. The AI features team is developing new creatures and prototyping gameplay for a new boss fight. So we've already got one sort of, well, yeah, not sort of. We've got one in Pyro with the Valakar. Now we're going to have another type of boss fight, so that'll be interesting to see. They're adding various polish features that I like this here. A close range shove attack that allows AI to respond rapidly to the player or other NPCs getting too close. That's cool. I like the fact that that will definitely make them seem a little more realistic. Like if you get right into an NPC's face, he might shove you away. They tweaked how NPCs perceive and investigate the world as a group. They worked on dynamically changing weapon conditions, like for instance the Volt Rifle. When it fires from rapid fire, it'll go to single when it's overheating. And they prototyped tech for AI using a bounding overwatch, where one will move forward while the other one's covering him, basically. Again, this will be a lot more immersive instead of having your NPCs just come all at you in a conga line like they currently do. The game intelligence team continued to prototype for the version 2 of the mission system and a bunch of other behind the scenes improvements to the code that I'm not for a moment going to pretend to understand here. The AI tech team was improving navigation all last month. Things like preventing NPCs from going into areas that they're not allowed to stop, or prevent them from leaving areas that they're supposed to be in, I would imagine. They worked on how ship AI and AI-controlled ships move along certain splines to make it look a little bit better by the looks of it. And to be honest, quite a few more things that are above my non-coder pay grade to understand. The animation team, as ever, was continually busy through the month, progressing with a new ship enter-exit template animation, performance capture shoots for several new mission givers and a mini-boss, working on narrative to create finalized animations for TV broadcast characters type thing, and they've been set to work on the mocap with the narrative team. The character art team created new armors and armor variants during the month, and they've started a new exploration phase for new flight suits. Now, the AI ship team, this is what a lot of people are going to be mostly interested in. The Anvil Paladin has got its gray box gate review, which identified some challenges with the side turret setup, resulting in some more iteration before it plays well, while adhering to the original concept that people bought into. They made further updates to the Drake Ironclad, which includes new elevators and revised staircase locations for improved travel times, and the Ironclad Assault is also progressing through Whitebox. The RSI Meteor was also put into the PU Live, along with the full interior retrofit for its brother or cousin, I guess, the Mantis. There are 4 unannounced vehicles that are currently progressing down the pipeline in various stages. One that just approached the end of the white box phase, the second passed it and is progressing into gray box. The third continued with all of its rooms receiving further geometry refinement. And the final unannounced vehicle passed a combined gate review. So there you go. That fills you all in. This is all done to provide more time for UI, audio, and VFX teams. The RSI Apollo Medevac, which is going to be a very popular ship, and Triage both passed their level of detail 0 reviews and are now in final stages, so they have damage setup paints and further level of detail stages being created. The RSI Perseus, a long-awaited ship, has now also entered the level of detail 0 phase, and the exterior is now receiving fine detail work to bring it in line with the other RSI ships. And finally, the much-awaited Drake Kraken has had further pre-production work. Pre-production means that it's not actively being worked on. They're getting ready to work on it. Now, surprise, surprise, the core gameplay team in July focused on freight elevators. This provided fixes for potential fixes, we should say, for critical issues during the resource event, and hopefully should ensure that future issues can be triaged faster. Another big one is that they did the work to change how contract generation is done and how missions utilize locations, both in terms of finding and reserving these locations to prevent them from being overrun. Bloody hell, this was needed, and like I said earlier in the video, with the new facilities, that seems to be working a hell of a lot better than it has before now. As mentioned in the patch notes, we can now spawn directly into our personal hangar. The concept UI that we recently saw in Star Citizen Live for inventory has now entered development, so hopefully we'll see that rather than later. Our current inventory management requires help. There was the ever ongoing work on the flight system using control surfaces and fly-by-wire, which was finished, and it included the implementation of auto trimming and various bugs that came out of playtesting. Quantum travel, they kept working on the implementation of new mechanics. This also involved the refactor for quantum interdiction to go along with server meshing, which has now been added back in. Now, they made some progress apparently on FPS radar and scanning. Now, I have not experienced this in game yet. I know it was in there for a little bit at one point, if I recall correctly, maybe like a day or two, but I haven't seen it since. It doesn't work for me if it is in there. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but that will be a very nice addition as well to the persistent universe, so long as it doesn't just provide points for you to run towards without having to explore. I think that would do the game a disservice. The economy team continued to review engagement mechanisms, or engagement metrics, pardon me, in order to balance the game in a way that's both fun and fair. And as part of making the game more accessible, you're now going to be able to find the ammunition used by most FPS weapons in a more significant number of shops. You should be able to find ammo easier. However, special ammo for certain weapons will still remain exclusive. Now, we know that the mission design team has been going haywire this year, going balls to the wall with continued stuff being added in, and this month was no different. They were doing the resource drive to see how players interacted with it. They helped engineering fix the mission generation system. They're looking at old locations that weren't included in the 4.0 refactor, so that we'll start to see existing combat missions go to these locations as well. And they supported 4.3 deliverables by creating missions to encourage players to engage with the new content, which, again, I do think has been working. It's not perfect, especially Wicklow. I think some of the things for Wicklow are a bit ridiculous for what you're going for. Like, smaller items require a fair bit of trouble just to get, as opposed to a giant ship, which that makes sense. But yeah, the mission design is doing some good work and still has a way to go, though. One thing I do like that they're working on is that whole accept mission in world system that they mention here, because that will be missions that just pop up when you come into close proximity with them, or you pick up an audio log and reading it gives you a mission. For those of you who have played Cyberpunk, you know exactly what this is like. When you walk past a gig on the map somewhere, even though you don't have a quest to go there, suddenly the fixer related to that mission will pop up and give you a call. I love this idea being added into Star Citizen, so bring that on. The narrative team continues to do what it's doing to give us reasons and a storyline in the background, like with the resource drive to help out with the regen crisis. The game wouldn't be anywhere without the narrative. I will be more interested in the narrative itself when the game is out, if that makes any sense, because so much can change in the meantime. But they are doing a lot of performance capture, and they're doing smaller, more frequent sessions to match the cadence of this current patch cycle. So, you know, they keep up the good work. We need reasons to play all this. The online technology team, of course, continued to focus on how to handle bug reports through the crash handler to make it more reliable, supported missions on both the server and the game sides, and they're continuing with the API development throughout August. While the R&D team's focus has shifted exclusively to analyzing performance and optimizing the engine and game code, and this will remain the primary focus for them for the foreseeable future. Now, along that note, there is also supposed to be an Evocati only test on Monday, I believe, for Vulcan and some of its performance upgrades or whatnot. It will only be a short amount of time. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be in on that one. I will be at work on afternoons this week. So those of you who are watching this, if you are an Evocati, you get into that, let me know how it goes, because I've found in other games that Vulcan runs much better for me than DirectX 11 a lot of the times, or DirectX 12 a lot of the times. So if you try it, let me know how it goes. I would be very interested in hearing. The UI team continues to support gameplay events, including the upcoming one, which I believe is the one we're currently partaking in the PU with the new ASD facilities. They're also starting work on that inventory UI that we just spoke about a moment ago, that was revealed in the Earning the Verse Star Citizen live episode. And they created a dashboard MFD UI for an upcoming vehicle, which is, you know, very non-specific. And finally, with VFX, well, they continue to focus on Alpha 4.3 with new locations, bespoke event, vehicles, and web. They're visual effects. That really doesn't change every patch note. I don't know if I really have to start, or really have to keep including that in the monthly update. But there you have it, folks. That is the latest info, the week's news, our Star Citizen weekly briefing for this week. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it informative. If you did, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new and want to see more. And until next time, sound off in the comments below what you think. Have you tried the new ASD facilities in the PTU? Is the resource drive in live working better for you now? I'd love to hear your comments from all of you regardless. Until next time, folks, I've been RayJakeGames, though, and I will see you in the verse. Bye-bye.